All right, we are live with a great topic. I'm always saying it's a great topic. I think every topic I cover is a great topic, but this one definitely is a hot topic for today. Do weight loss drugs really work? We already got Joan in the chat room. Hey, Joan, thanks for joining in. And as always, anyone who's joining in doesn't want to be too shy. Let us know where you're watching from. I always like to greet my viewers. And remember, this is an interactive live. So if you have questions as I go through a presentation on weight loss drugs, ask them. Ask them. This is the time to get your questions answered. Now, whether or not you are overweight, looking to lose weight, this is good information because all of us know someone who's struggling with weight loss that may be considering these weight loss drugs. And tonight we're going to go through, I would believe this is going to be probably a multi-part series. There's a lot to uncover when it comes to weight loss in general, weight loss drugs, especially the ones that are on market, Ozempic and Wegovy. So after watching tonight, share this live since it's going to be recorded and uploaded. Share it with your friends, family. Um, so we're gonna try to cover multiple things. So that's why I know this is gonna take more than just one live session. Today, what I want to answer is mainly do they work, how effective they are, how effective are weight loss drugs. Later on, we're going to talk about, of course, the side effects, short-term and long-term side effects. And if you're on these drugs, you might want to definitely calendar that event, because we're also going to talk about how, if you're on the drugs, how to mitigate or decrease some of these side effects. Okay. If you're on these drugs. And then we're eventually going to do a live on alternative methods for weight loss. So if you're on the fence, or you're like, no, I'm not going to try those drugs, we're going to talk about what you can do instead to lose weight and be effective. One thing we're going to do is next month, June 12th, we're going to have a workshop, online workshop. It'll be a one-day event where we go intense on what we can do to lose weight naturally, okay, and making lasting changes for our health. The great thing is, the method that we teach on this channel is good for you, whether or not you're looking to lose weight. If you're just looking to maintain a healthy weight, if you're looking to just promote your longevity, restore energy, reverse diabetes, the method that I teach is effective for all that. All right. So we teach how to adopt a whole food plant-based diet, not only for diabetes reversal, but for many other chronic conditions such as obesity. And it can be very effective. But so the topic for today is, do weight loss drugs work? It's going to be more than one event for sure. So, I don't know if anyone watching, if you guys are on weight loss drugs, like I would like to know, especially obviously if it's the Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, any of these newer drugs. Let us know in the chat. If you're if you're taking them, maybe let us know how effective they've been for you so far. Okay, but what I want to start, I think the best way to start really is to go into the history of weight loss drugs in general. So I know, we just want to go probably cut to the chase and say, well, answer the question, does it work? But I think we need to know the past, right? There's a saying that if we don't understand our past, we're doomed to repeat it. Let's understand it tonight briefly, starting with the past or the history of weight loss drugs in general. Okay, so I'm gonna open up the screen here to kind of just go through a brief overview of the history of weight loss drugs, and then we're going to go into the real meat. And I think we'll probably be done pretty quickly, because I try not to make these lives longer than 30-35 minutes on the most. Okay. I think it'll go as quick as you want it to. So if you have questions, this is something that I've made my mission to study, because obviously diabetes 180, a lot of our clients do struggle with obesity and being overweight. All right. So let's start from the beginning, right? So what is the history of weight loss drugs? Well, we have a long history of weight loss drugs. And unfortunately, every 1 to 2 years, we got a new miracle wonder drug that comes out. And this has been for the last for decades, right? It's nothing new to come to see drugs on the market, but I'm gonna go through a list and just historically what happens when we pull the trigger too quickly on drugs. All right, and I'm trying to be unbiased. Like, so even if I'm going through the history of these weight loss drugs, please understand that I'm just trying to set up the context, right? I'm gonna tell you right now that I am not a person that says no, we don't use these drugs. I try to be very balanced. They're going to be good for some, not but it's really going to be up to you, right? And your individual goals, and as they say, the risk versus benefits. Okay, so Aminorex, I don't know if anyone was familiar with this drug. Aminorex was a drug that was known to be very effective for weight loss and appetite suppressant, suppress appetite very well, but then was pulled for causing lung damage. Right, it was pulled from the market when it was associated with pulmonary artery hypertension. Right, going through this. Next, we have Fenfen. I don't know if everyone heard of Fenfen. This was one of the most prescribed drugs for quite some time. It was prescribed to 18 million Americans before it was pulled for causing severe damage to heart valves. Right. Meridia, another popular weight loss drug, was eventually pulled for causing heart attacks and strokes. Right. Going down the list, we have another drug called Acomplia, which was pulled eventually for psychiatric side effects, including suicide. We have Belvik, which actually this one is really interesting. Belvik was thought to be very safe. It was actually marketed not just for weight loss, but also for those for elevated blood sugar levels. It was good for hyperglycemia. Uh, it was something that all doctors felt like, this is a good drug. This is something that people can trust. But after 8 years of being on the market, this drug was pulled for causing cancer. Right. So that should give us a reason to pause. Okay. 8 years on the market before it was eventually pulled from the market. Right. And what was interesting also with this drug is that initially there was concern because there was in the original testing on lab rats, they knew this drug was causing tumors. So then they did a study on humans on this drug, and for a year, did a human trial, and there was no indication, no sign of tumor development. So we're a-okay, we're safe. It doesn't cause cancer in humans. We're good. Um, but unfortunately, it continued to be used until, after 8 years on the market, they found out it was called there was high rates of colorectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, and lung cancer in the users of this drug, and then it was pulled from the market. Um, this one is also very interesting. Mediator is actually a drug manufactured, I believe, in France. It's a French pharmaceutical company that knew that this drug was causing risk, or I should say, had a high chance of causing harm, but they covered it up. They covered it up and continued to allow these drugs to be marketed and sold. And it was marketed and sold for 33 years before they found out that it was causing hundreds of deaths. All right. So just I want us to think about these facts, okay, as we think about whether or not we want to be on these drugs. It's very important for us to understand the risks. All right, it's very important for us to understand those risks because, again, if we forget our past, we're doomed to repeat it. So that being said, now the best question is, well, are these drugs different? Are these drugs safe? Right? Me personally, as a physician assistant, I've always been very reluctant to prescribe weight loss drugs because there's usually a lot of side effects and a lot of risks with drugs on the market. Even today, even the drugs that are being used, we're not even talking about GLP-1s. Even the drugs are not being used that are being used that are not GLP-1s. There's a lot of risk with those drugs. So the question is now, GLP-1s, are they safer? Um, well, we're gonna talk about the safetyness of that drug specifically on another live. Okay, right now I want to focus on, do they work? All right, do they actually work, and how effective do they work? Okay, so go back to my next slide here. So how do they work? GLP-1s are basically um, or hormone that is produced in the intestines. So we all produce GLP-1, this hormone, in our intestines, and the site of action or where these hormones end up are tissues all over the brain. I mean, all over the body, including our brain. So they are created in the intestines when the intestines sense food, mainly carbohydrates or fats. So whenever we eat a meal, their tissues or cells lining our digestive tract secrete this hormone to communicate different messages throughout the body. One of the main messages that makes this hormone effective is its ability to slow our appetite, telling our brain, "Hey, we're eating. You know, there's food in our digestive tract. Slow down, buddy. Right? We're working on food right now." Another thing it does is it sends a message to the brain, to local tissues to slow down how fast food is emptying from the stomach. So food slows down, and as it moves through the digestive tract, you can imagine how this is actually a good thing for diabetics, right? Who want a gentle rise in their blood sugar levels and not a spike. Okay, so these drugs are something that were originally made for diabetics, but eventually were approved for weight loss because it was so effective for those diabetics. They noticed that not only were their blood sugars benefited from this drug, but also from the weight loss. So how where does it actually come from? This is actually an interesting fact. I don't know if anyone knows this, but it actually comes from a lizard, the saliva of a venomous lizard. The Gila monster is what it's called. So the problem with the GLP ones that we make, because I know people then ask me, why don't we just use the GLP ones in our own body and just reproduce them? The problem with the GLP-1 hormone in our body that our body makes is that it goes through our circulatory system very fast, right? It's quickly broken down in our body. So um don't ask me how they figured these things out. Like, how do they know to test this lizard saliva? I don't know, but they figured out at some point many years ago that the saliva from this venomous lizard um, actually creates mimic, or to say something like the GLP-1 hormone that allows it to go long periods without food, right? So they took this, and what's great is that this hormone lasts very long. It doesn't break down very fast. So they're able to take this, put it in a lab, create a synthetic form, and sell and market it as a weight loss drug, right? So now that's how we have it today. Do they work? Do these drugs work? Well, I think the best way to answer whether or not these drugs work is to compare them to weight loss drugs that we've used in the past. Okay. All right. So all right, and just so I want to say hello to Vita. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Is it Vita or Veta? But thank you so much for watching, Vita. And hello to Place 2 stars 234. I like that name. Cool. Again, guys, as I'm presenting, ask questions if you have questions. Okay. We're moving really quick, and I'm probably going to be done with most of my slides pretty shortly, because again, we're focusing on just whether or not these drugs are effective. Okay, we're going to go into side effects and alternatives later on. Okay, so are they effective? So traditional weight loss drugs, um, like the ones we talked about before that were pulled from the market, as well as there's the weight loss drugs that are being used today, the non-GLP ones, traditionally cause about 5% weight loss. Okay, 5% weight loss. Um, and if you compare that to the GLP ones of today, including the higher dose GLP ones like Zepbound, Mounjaro, they're triple effect the effect 3 times as effective there, so that triple the effect of weight loss. So you're going from 5% to 15% effectiveness in losing weight. That's why it's blowing people's minds, because what does this mean, and as far as pounds? So think about this, someone on Wegovy can lose up to 27 pounds. That's 3.5 inches off their waist. right? That's pretty significant, right? Um, when you're looking at the higher dose medications, like Monjuro and Zepbound, you're going up to 45 pounds lost, right? Which is 5.5 inches off their waist, right? Something that we have not seen in other drugs that were essentially 3 times less effective, right? So you're definitely getting a bigger bang for your buck with these drugs, right? And we're not going to talk about the cost of these drugs right now, but yeah, you're definitely getting a significant amount of weight loss. So do these work? They do. How well do they work? So how well they do work? How well do they work? Here we have to think about, well, does it work for everybody? Right? How do I know that it's going to work for me? Yeah. So okay, thanks Vita for it's Vita. Thank you so much. All right, I'll try not to mess that up again. Thank you. But yeah, so how well do they work? So you must you have to sit back and ask yourself, okay, well, am I going to be the one who loses 45 pounds? Right? Am I going to be one to lose 27 pounds? So thinking about the effectiveness of these drugs, they don't work for everyone the same way, obviously, right? Some people are what we call super responders. And that, according to studies, the latest research, 1/3 of people who use these drugs are going to be super responders, meaning they're going to respond really well to these drugs. They're going to be dropping weight very fast. They're going to drop a significant amount of weight. So when you go back to the previous slide, I would say the super responders are the ones who are losing that 45 pounds on Zepbound, right? Or the 27 pounds, close to 30 pounds on Wegovy. All right, those are super responders. So in essence, that's the best you could expect, but that only happens about 1/3 of users, right? So what about other people? Those who are not super responders, there is also a 20% failure rate so basically those who are on these drugs for a long period of time and they fail to lose a significant amount of weight. That's about 20% failure. 20% of people don't fail. So you have don't lose weight. So you have the super responders and you got those who don't lose any weight at all, and then you got the people in the middle who are probably going to lose a moderate amount of weight, not as much as the super responders, but they'll have some success, right? And if you think about it, 20% failure rate is not that bad, right? As on a population scale. Um, Actually, bariatric surgery has a failure rate that's very similar. So people who are going under the knife and going with surgery also have a failure rate of about 20%, where the procedure doesn't work. So there are some people who don't lose significant weight. What's interesting too is actually studies show that there are some people who actually gain weight on these drugs. I haven't found the breakdown of percentage wise how many people gain weight there, but there are people who actually are on these drugs for up to a year and they actually gain weight. So I'm sure that's something that is not anywhere close to my majority, but there are a minority of people who will gain weight. So some people are super responders, some people will fail, 20%, and then you have the rest of the people in the middle who are losing somewhere, I would probably say, 10% of their body weight. Okay. So that's something to consider. Next thing to consider is how long does it work, or I should say, how long do you have to stay on these drugs? How long do we have to stay on these drugs? Um, and let me see here. Before I answer that, I see Vita, you had a question or comment. Let me just read that there. Vita writes, "My weight is not going down much, like 9 pounds in 2 months. But gold for A1C down 2 points. Good, awesome, awesome. And you're not using insulin, so that's good. And this is something great, that you can use this, for your diabetes, not just for weight loss, but for your diabetes. But yeah, there are a lot of people who are going to lose, probably, like I said, in the middle ground, not a significant lot of amount of weight on these drugs, right? But I would say that you're probably on this drug pretty much. You're pretty much new to the drug, right? So 2 months is not long. You still can lose more if you stay on this drug. It actually will get its full effect on up until a year. So studies show, and this is I think the largest studies include somewhere around like 17,000 people, like over 4 years. So people who are on this drug for a very long time, they watch them up, they watch to see how effective it is, or how long it's effective. And something very interesting happens. You lose weight, everybody in all studies, whether you're talking about Wegovy or Ozempic or the newer drugs like Zepbound, they all stop losing weight after about a year. Right. So you can expect to lose weight up until maybe about a year. If you're looking at this graph, I think this graph is a little small. Let me try to see. There's a better one. Probably not. I thought I had a better one. Sorry if you can't see this. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Let's see. Maybe a little bigger here. So, yeah. So after about a year, and you can't see the marks here. Sorry. I'm trying to make sure that this is showing on. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to present myself on Instagram. So I was supposed to be live on Instagram too. Man, I'm just pressing live now. All right. So anyone watching on Instagram, hello. But yeah, the effectiveness stops around here, which is about the 1 year mark for for all of these drugs and all the studies. Their same effect. It stops working after a year. Um, which is very interesting, and we're gonna talk about that in a moment. Um, One thing that also starts to plateau is the BMI, okay? The BMI, or your body mass index. So you this is really crazy to me. If you look at this chart, okay, the gray is the obese area region, okay? And the middle ground, the dark gray, the middle gray is overweight, and the white is normal weight, ideal body weight. Do you see something interesting with these drugs? And these are studies. These are studies on the late, including the latest supposedly most effective drugs. Um, they all start out obese and they end up obese. So that's interesting, right? So on these drugs, the vast majority of people who take these drugs for a year or more, they stop losing weight after a year. And if they continue taking the drug, they stay at that weight, a lower weight, right? They're not as obese, they're less obese, but they're but they're still obese, essentially. So these drugs alone, how effective are they? Do they work? Well, if you weren't able to get, for sure, it does reduce your risk of complications at a higher BMI, right? But you still are at a somewhat high risk, right? Even if you're at the lower end of obese. So over a year's time, you're going to lose all the weight you're expected to lose, and you're probably going to stop there. Just think about that a little bit. So, um, why do you think this happens? Why are users getting to the point where the drug just stops working? This is really interesting. Okay, the reason why it plateaus, it makes sense, and I'll explain it. So how the drug works is that it convinces the brain that you are full all the time. That's why people feel nauseous and they feel upset in their stomach, right? Because it's basically essentially telling the brain that you're in a fed state all day. But what do you think is going to happen eventually to the brain? Our brain is smarter than that, right? Eventually, our brain's going to catch on to the trick, right? And it's going to say, "Hey, Lewis, you're not tricking me no more. Um, I'm gonna make you eat." So then essentially, your brain literally starts to resist the drug's effectiveness. The brain starts to tell the drug, I'm not fooled anymore. Okay. And your appetite, let's say, okay, let's put some numbers on it. Let's say we start the drug, okay, and like Vita said, you've been on it for 2 months, right? And you're going into 3 months, your appetite's going to start ratcheting down to the point, let's say you're eating 800 calories less than what you normally would, right? So now you're in 800 calorie deficit. Of course, you're going to lose weight. Anyone in a big deficit like that because of their weight loss, of their food consumption being cut short, is going to lose weight. But eventually, according to the studies, after about a year, your brain catches on and it starts to resist the drug. So now instead of eating 800 less calories, because your appetite has now gone up a bit, not all the way up because you're still taking the drug, right? It's still doing something. It goes up by about 400 calories. So now you're back to eating 400 more calories. right? So you should still be in a deficit though, because there's, there's what about the other 400 calories you're not eating that you used to eat? But here's a catch: you're now lighter than you were before. Because you're lighter than you were before, right? You're carrying less weight in your body has about 400 calories less need, right, to survive. So your metabolic needs now are less, right? Your metabolism is now um, less in need of calories. So you ratchet down your calorie needs by 400 calories, and you're eating 400 more calories. You're now in a happy middle, maintaining your weight. Does that make sense? Let me know if that's not making sense. Please let me know, because um, I think it's important for us to know the biology of how these drugs work, right? So after about a year's time, your appetite ratchets up, not all the way up to where it was before, but you're also your calorie needs go down, and you come into a little happy plateau. And as these studies show, you start to basically maintain maintain a weight to the same weight, right? Though you are lighter than you were before, you're maintaining the same weight. And this weight for the mass murder people is still obese. Now think about this though. I mean, again, I'm gonna try to be unbiased here. It's still a good thing, right? Any weight loss, especially let's say you lost 27 pounds, right? That's good. That's good. It's great, especially how many of us have been able to do that any other way, right? It's a good thing. But what happens now when you stop the drug? And thinking about, of course, at the beginning of our lecture, the risks that have come with long-term use of drugs. Who does this truly benefit to have a drug that keeps you obese, even if it's just marginally so, and you have to stay on it essentially for the rest of your life to stay in this range of not completely normal, but better than you were before? Maintaining. Who does it benefit other than the pharmaceutical company? All right. So, yeah. All right. I confess I can't be unbiased. All right. I'm definitely leaning one way or the other. All right. But obviously, as a physician assistant, I do have to confess I prescribe these drugs. I do, because there are some people who really are the food noise is loud, right? The food noise is unbearable, and they you find yourself trying every method there is and failing, right? And so this drug comes in like a miracle pill, like a magic bullet, and is able to finally quiet the food noise enough for you to start to gain traction in your weight loss journey. Okay. But what I'm going to start encouraging us to do in the future lives is finding alternative ways to quiet the food noise. Because if we rely only on drugs, we are setting ourselves up for possible drastic results. We're going to talk about some of the side effects later. But yeah, weight loss does happen. But when you stop the drug, the weight loss not only stops, but of course it returns. So this is more studies here. I'll show you when people stop the drug, the weight loss comes back. This is a study comparing placebo to, continuing the drug. Those who are switched unknowingly to a placebo, in other words, stop at that point where the line is, they stop taking the drug and they give them placebo, the weight loss comes climbing right back. So the weight you lost comes climbing right back. So in other words, you regain the weight. And this is including the higher dose Tirzepatide, Zepbound. Same thing happens when people stop the drug, they gain it right back. So I'm gonna leave it up to you, but I want to encourage you, if you are using these drugs, to make sure you have alternative methods to quiet the food noise, so that you don't need to be on these drugs forever, to just maintain the weight loss that you got over having it for a year. That is if you make it to a year. Okay, because next week we're going to talk about how much people, or why so many people quit these drugs and can't make it to a year. Many people can't make it to a year. And we're going to talk about some of the studies, why this happens. I'm also going to encourage you what you can do if you want to really stay the course. Okay. Again, I'm trying to stay unbiased. But yeah, stay tuned for next week's live. We're going to talk about the side effects a little bit, how to deal with them, and in future lives alternatives. But you definitely want to pay attention to next week's live, because we're going to talk about not just the short-term side effects that we all know about: nausea, the vomiting, constipation, diarrhea, but we're also going to talk about some maybe possible long-term concerns with these drugs, right? But I can't let this opportunity pass without inviting you to join me for a weight loss workshop next month, June 12th. Like I said at the beginning of our live, June 12th, we're going to have a weight loss workshop. We're going to talk about what you can do, whether or not you're on the drug, what you can do to maintain a sustainable, healthy weight loss plan. All right. To quiet that food noise, to real steps. We're going to talk about real steps to develop a plan that works for you and that you can stick with long term to find real results. Okay, it's going to be an intensive, possibly an hour to an hour and a half long, right? I believe it's on a Thursday, so June 12th, the week before summer begins, right? All right, June 12th. Join me. Scan the QR code. I'll also put the link to the event in the chat. So if you'd like to join us, then check the link in the chat. It's gonna be right there. So check the link in the chat whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, and join us for our live next month. All right. So hope you guys are informed a little bit. And next week we're gonna talk about some more about these drugs, because we really gotta talk about it. We gotta talk about whether or not these drugs are worth our time and our money. Okay. So unless you have any other questions, let's leave it at that. There's so much more I want to talk about with these drugs, but I'm gonna leave it because we just hit the 30-minute mark, and I always try to keep our lives to about 30 minutes. Okay. All right. So another thing is, in the show notes, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, we'll have links to the studies. So if you want to look at the studies yourself, then go ahead and check the description section for the show notes. I'll also add the workshop link in the description section too. I'll do that once we close off right now. All right. So, beloved, I pray above all things that you may prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. We'll see you next week.